Um, so during my semester interning at Southern Made, which is a digital marketing firm based here in Nashville, I chose a learning goal that was not just of great importance to my company, but also to the business world as a whole. And this is the software Google Analytics. So over the last few months, I've built up my knowledge on this topic through both hands-on tasks within my role at Southern Made, as well as through online research and also taking a Google Analytics training course. So I'm excited to share with you all my learning. And over the course of screencasts, I will discuss what Google Analytics is, how it gathers its data, what the program does with this data, and how I've been using the program at Southern Made. So Google Analytics, for those of you who do not know, is a product that provides users with advanced metrics and data about their website traffic. So companies use Google Analytics to identify the demographics of those using their sites and to be able to track how these users interact with their sites. So online survey data, which I found from w3tech.com, showed that as of this month, 85% of all sites using any sort of tracking were using Google Analytics. And this is 55% of all websites online. So Orbit Media states that by the end of 2017, 95% of the top 200 marketing websites were using the Google Analytics tracking tool. So this shows not only the significance of Google Analytics as a software in itself, but also the huge opportunity that is seen in this data. And as the screencast will show, the ease of collection is why it's such a large proponent of modern day marketing. So on top of the basic Google Analytics software, there's also a large variety of useful add-ons that can help maximize and focus your data even further. So while I won't have time to go into these today, a tool commonly used at my company Southern Made is Google Data Studios. And this takes all the information that I will show you during the screencast, and it creates an easy to read report that automatically updates for our clients and allows them to simply go into their own Google accounts and analyze the progress and trends seen on their sites through these reports that are updated automatically. So you may be wondering how Google Analytics works. So it's ultimately as simple as just using a basic tracking code, which is attached to all pages of a website in order to gain a vast amount of insight into user sources and behaviors. So the software uses a Java tracking code to collect information on visitors to the websites and how they behave. So it also installs a cookie into the user's browser as they explore your site, and this cookie helps track information such as whether the user is new or returning, how many times they visited the site, the length of their session, and which domain the site is being visited on. So here we have a sample site. It's actually the Google Merchandise Store is the app used for the sample sites, and this is provided by Google Analytics for training purposes such as this. Now, before I go into the data itself, I'm going to quickly show you the tracking code that would be attached to each site. So you can see here. So this is a tracking code that would be attached to the URLs and allow Google Analytics to gauge its data, as well as tracking the unique interactions of users on the site. So going back to the main page, interactions are any type of action a user performs on a website. So whether that's clicking on a link or playing a video, with each interaction, the site sends information to analytics about the user and their behavior, and this information is called a hit. So a hit is created through a URL that contains information about the user's behavior. So this information can present details such as the user's location, language, the page they went on, and the device they used. So here is the main interface of Google Analytics, and it provides an overall summary of the data collected. So I will go into more of this throughout the screencast, but you can see here the traffic channel, for example, the sources that users are coming from, so Google, referrals, you can see here how many, the user retention rates, so how many users are coming back, countries, all these various categories that bring very useful data to the owners of the various websites. And so there are four main types of hits that I will mention, depending on the type of user interaction. And these four are page view hits, event hits, transaction hits, and social hits. So the page view hit is the most common type that gets sent to analytics, and it occurs whenever a user loads a web page on the site that contains a tracking code. So this can instantly provide information such as the location of the user, um, their domain, and how they were directed to the site. So most of this is found in the audience section. So this is where you go into more specifics on, the location, the types of technology being used. So you can see, so here are the languages users are using when using the site, countries people are coming from. You can see here the various browsers that people are using. So 80% of users are accessing the site on a Chrome browser. Various operating systems. So you can see that Windows is the most common, followed by Mac and Android. You can see also, mobily, what operating systems people are using. So you have all this very useful information. You can see, the amount of page views, how many sessions every user, how many sessions are being used per user. I'll go into more detail about sessions further on. This is the bounce rate. So this is how many people are immediately leaving the site once they land on the landing page. So that means the bounce rate is 42%. That means 42% of people are immediately leaving the page once they arrive. So an interesting category that we use at Southern Made, which one I found interesting, was affinity categories. And so this is a way to see the various interests of the users of the site. So Google Analytics kind of uses information that's found on the particular users, and it puts them into categories for their interests. So you can see value shoppers, those who like technology, movie lovers, business professionals, all these different ways that users of Google Analytics are able to see and categorize their customers. As I mentioned before, another useful another very useful part of the page view hits is acquisition. So where are people coming from? Where are users being directed to the page? So you can see here under referrals. So you can see that these are the various websites that people are going to initially before coming to this site. So you've got Gmail, you've got YouTube, you've got Creator Academy on YouTube, just all these various sources. See more here. So as unsurprisingly, many people are coming straight from Google. So all this useful information that owners of websites can see where people are coming from. So another type of hit that I mentioned is an event hit. And an event code occurs when a user interacts with a specific function on a website. So actions like playing a video, clicking a link, filling out a contact form, things like this. So as this is sample data for the Google Merchandise Store, we'll be able to see here that the events are largely focused around e-commerce. So here you can see how many people went on Contact Us, Enhance E-commerce, various events, so how many people added to cart, clicked on promotions, removed from cart, all these different events, these different ways that customers can interact with the page. It's all tracked here by Google Analytics. So another type of hit I'll mention is a transaction hit, and this is found under conversions. And so what a transaction hit is, as the name suggests, it occurs when a user purchases a product on a website and it provides specific data pertaining to these specific purchases. So you can see here what people are spending money on. It's got both the categories, the specific products, the brands. It's all this information that e-commerce stores are able to use. And the last type of hit I'll mention is a social hit. And so this provides information about any social media interactions, such as social media likes, shares, or tweets. So if we go to acquisition and social, we can see all this relevant information, where people are interacting with social media on the page. So once again, we've got referrals, we've got where are people being referred from, we've got conversions. So all this information to see how people are interacting with various social media channels on the page. So what does Google Analytics do once it receives this data? Well, when the hit data is processed, it's categorized into users and sessions. So when a user first lands on the website with a tracking code, a random and unique ID is created and instantly associated with that user's browser cookie. So this means that when analytics detects a new ID, this user is considered a new user. But if it's a returning ID, the user is considered a returning user. However, a return user will be considered a new user if they've either cleared their cookies or returning on a new device. So hits are categorized into sessions, and sessions, as I mentioned before, these are used by analytics to create an understanding on how a user is engaging with the site. So a session involves grouping all the individual user hits that happen during a time frame. So once a user arrives in a site containing a tracking code, a session begins. So from the initial page view hit and all subsequent interactions by the user, these are all recorded within a session. And a session ends when a user either leaves the site altogether or when there's been 30 minutes of inactivity. So session data is then used to calculate metrics such as the number of overall sessions, which I showed before, how many pages people are interacting with per session, how long the average session lasts, and once again, as I showed before, the bounce rate. So now if I go into, let's go into age. So if I go into age under demographics, here we can see the different age groups and how many users and new users and sessions there are for each age group. So we can see, as I said, we can see new users versus overall users. We can see the amount of sessions, bounce rate here, how many pages per session, how long does each session last. And then here, more specifically focused towards it being a merchandise store, we can see more specific data on the conversions. So something else to note is different types of data Google Analytics presents. So if we go to the top here, we can see the differing levels within an analytics account. So you have the properties, which is where the individual sites that the data being collected is coming from. So while this sample data has just one property, Southern Made will have many different properties that are being used for the various clients and the websites the clients are creating. And due to the large amount of clients and websites, Southern Made actually will have different accounts to be able to store all the properties within. So due to the confidential nature of Southern Made's clients' reports, I can't go into their individual accounts, but I can show you here on the sample page. So now back to the sample page. We see three types of data views. So we've got the master view, we've got the test view, and we've got the raw view, the raw data view. So a reporting view is the level in an account where you can see the reports and analysis tools. So the raw data view is exactly what it sounds like. It's a completely unfiltered view of all the data that has been gathered. So I'll show you that here. So it probably look pretty similar, but this is all every interaction, all the data that's been gained by Google Analytics with no filters, no anything. It's all right here. So it's essentially a backup. So useful backup of your data, and it can also be used as comparison to when you put filters on your data. So the test view is optional. Not all accounts will have this, but the test view is essentially a way for you to test out filters before setting anything concrete. So this isn't used very much at Southern Made. Southern Made is mostly you have the raw data and then you have the master view. The master view is using the special configurations that the client would have chosen. So now back to the master view. The master view is the view of most importance, as it's here where you can set up filters, goals, and alerts. So filters are used to narrow down your data by excluding or modifying. Sorry about that. By excluding or modifying particular data. So a common filter at Southern Made is, ensuring that internal traffic from company employees is ignored, because this can misleadingly skew the consumer data if it includes people, testing the site or going on the site for various reasons within the company. That can bring information that isn't actually, accurate towards your client, how your clients are engaged with the site. So goals is another aspect, and these are used to measure how well your site is performing in relevant areas. So if we go to conversions, you can see for this e-commerce site, goals that are being set. Now, how many people are getting to the basket, how many people are getting to payment. You can track how many people are getting to whichever areas of the site you consider a goal, you consider a success. You're able here to see the overall completion, but also, let's say we go back into age. Go back into age, we can see the goals set here. So within the various age categories, we can see which people, how the rate of conversions, the rate of people are purchasing products. So we can go to specific ones. How many purchases are complete? We can see that we're having the greatest success with people between the age of 35 and 44. So this is just a great example of the ways that, with the master view, you're able to bring together the various categories and the various customer segments and see which segments are interacting with the sites in various ways and which ones are driving the most success. Obviously, this is very helpful for marketing campaigns because you can kind of tailor your marketing efforts in a way that will drive the most success based off of data such as this. So another also another aspect of goals is a concept called conversions. So as you can see here where it says the conversion rate, a conversion is considered completed once it's a completed act that you've been noted to signal success to your organization, as I said before. So another aspect I mentioned is alerts. So then these can be set to notify any significant changes in consumer behavior. So if we actually go back into the home section, you can see here that Google Analytics is letting us know that our revenue is lower than forecasted. So this is something that can only come about through the master view, and that's an alert that has been set. So Google Analytics reports contain two components, dimensions and metrics. So dimensions are the attributes of the data. So this can be which countries the data is coming from, which browsers, operating system, languages, search providers, etc. While metrics are the quantitative measurements of these dimensions. So examples of metrics for each dimensions can be users, the total number of users on dimension, or sessions, the total number of sessions. And so within these reports that Southern Made creates, the user can create custom configurations that are applied to the collected data. And so with these configurations, dimensions and metrics are created to present the data in a way that the client would prefer. So let's go back into audience. This time we'll go into the locations. So you can see here, so the primary dimension seen here is country, but a client may prefer to see the city or the continent, but we'll stick with country at this point. You can also add a secondary dimension, so commonly used, you can see devices. So now it's ranking not only just the country, but also the devices being used within the country. But we'll take that away for now. And so then the various metrics seen are how many users are being used within the countries, how many sessions, what are the bounce rates. Once again, we've got the goal still here. So all these useful ways that a company can customize the layout of their data to increase, what they get out of looking at this information. So dimensions and metrics come in three different scopes. There's hit level, session level, and user level to allow for the most applicable information to be presented. So as mentioned before, the hit level scope refers to information pertaining to a singular action. So that would be page views in a singular page, where you're seeing when you look at one specific page, how many views is that getting? Session level describes the attributes behind a singular session. So you can see actually these three categories are all session level scopes. So you can see in each session, how many people are immediately leaving, how many pages are people viewing per session, how long does the average session last. And then lastly, it's user level, which as would be seen over here, and as it sounds, that's specific data for the types of users. So how many new users are there, how many overall users, information like that. So now, going back to the homepage, so just to reiterate what I do at Southern Made, as this is focused on the Google merchandising store, but all the information you've seen is pretty similar to what we're working with at Southern Made, where we generate reports for our clients in order for us to provide our clients with insight on the types of consumers that are using their sites and how they're behaving with them. So as a web-based marketing company, we provide reports on all types of marketing sites. So whether it's a sweepstakes, you can see how many people are filling out the forms in sweepstakes, what types of people are going on the page, and then there's a very high bounce rate and people immediately leaving. Another common marketing site that we build is promotional sites for the release of a new album. So obviously you can imagine how that would be useful to find the data on those sites, because even before an album is released, a marketing agency is able to see the types of people that are viewing the site, viewing the preview, and getting excited about the release of this new album. So we use compiled data, as I mentioned previously, to provide weekly reports. We also provide annual reports where we can combine the data from all of a company's marketing promotions. As I mentioned, you have the different properties, so we can take all the different properties, websites under a specific client, and we can identify themes and patterns that we've noticed emerge. So that's largely how Southern Made interacts with Google Analytics, and I hope that I've been able to present an educational example of how Google Analytics works, the types of data it can provide you, and the ways that all types of customers, from e-commerce to marketing agencies, as I mentioned, how they can utilize this great software to really maximize their business efforts. And hopefully the screencast also presented my progress of learning Google Analytics, and it's also represented the reasons why it's such a key part of my organization, as well as the digital marketing industry as a whole. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and please feel free to reach out to me with any further questions about Google Analytics. Thank you.